Does the sound work?
Yes. So Andrea, how are we doing for quorum?
We are almost there. Greetings. Just double checking with attendance. Sorry for background.
I think we are now at quorum,
Yeah.
Russell. So,
Yes.
and I see Judge Clines is here to swear new officers in, if you would like to do that. And I also
Yeah,
see,
let's just
Just I want to remind everybody for the public session, if you want to speak in the public session, you have to sign up online. You have until 6:45 p.m. to do that. You sign up in the same place where you signed in for the meeting. So just want to remind everybody since the clock is ticking on that. But yeah, let's start with the swearing in. So I'll turn it over to Judge Kleins.
Go ahead and unmute, Jim. You have to hit the button on your screen before you can start talking. Perfect.
Thank you, Russell. It's great to be home. It's good to see everybody. And I wish everybody a happy and healthy new year. We'll begin with a swearing in. Russell Squire, Chairman of Community Board 8 for 2023. So Russell Squire, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Russell Squire,
I, Russell Squire,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the City Charter of the City of New York,
the City Charter of the City of New York,
and the bylaws of the Manhattan Community Board 8,
and the bylaws of the Manhattan Community Board 8,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties as Chairman of Manhattan Community Board 8
the duties as Chair of Manhattan Community Board 8
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So now we'll swear in the officers collectively. Valerie Mason is the first vice chair, Rebecca Dan Gore, second vice chair, Felice Farber, secretary, Addison Leaf, secretary, and Sandra Coleman, secretary. All right, so all raise your right hands and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Rebecca Dangor,
Sandra Coleman,
I, Addison Lev,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly
solemnly
swear
do
swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will
that I
support the
will
Constitution
the
of the United
Constitution
States,
of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the
the
Constitution of the
Constitution of the State of New York,
the City Charter of the City of New York,
City
the
Charter
the
City Charter
Charter
New York.
of the City of New York,
and the bylaws of Manhattan Community Board 8,
and the
and the
bylaws
bylaws
of
of
Manhattan
Manhattan
Board 8,
Community Board 8,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will
and I will
faithfully
faithfully discharge
the duties as an officer of Manhattan Community Board 8,
the duties of an
the
the
officer
duties
of
of as an
Manhattan
officer
Community Board
of
8,
Manhattan Community Board 8,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
best of my ability,
so help me God.
So help me
So
God.
help me God.
Congratulations to all the officers of Manhattan
Thank you.
Community Board 8 for 2023.
Thank you very much, Judge and former CB8 Chair Jim Kleins. Always very nice to have you here. We
Good
appreciate it.
night, everybody.
Night. Bye, Jim.
All right. Before we get to the public session, I believe we're joined by Councilmember Julie Menon, so we will turn it over to her.
Thank you so much, Russell. It's great to see all of you. Happy New Year to everyone on Community Board 8. So I do have just a couple quick updates. I want to mention that earlier today, I participated in the City Council, had a hearing on unlicensed cannabis shops. We all know they're proliferating all over the city. There are literally thousands of them. And at our hearing today, I questioned my former agency that I used to serve as commissioner about the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, because I'm very upset that some of these products have cartoon characters on them. They're being marketed to kids and they've been tested and they have really harmful and dangerous products in them. And so I have said to DCWP, they need to do an advertising and marketing campaign. When I was commissioner, we dealt with this issue around K2 synthetic marijuana, and we did a whole advertising campaign, bus ads, subway ads. We targeted advertisements to schools, to PTAs, directly to the cigarette retail dealers to tell them that these products have harmful and dangerous chemicals in them. And so, we had a very strong hearing today, and so I will remain on it, but we really need to be doing a lot more. The sheriff indicated that they have seized $4 million worth of product, but that's not nearly enough. In contrast, in 2014, when we were cracking down on K2 and synthetic marijuana, we seized $17.5 million worth of products. So really urging the city to do more to crack down on these unlicensed smoke shops. So I will continue to update the board on the work there. I wanted to update you on a bill that I have that had a hearing recently, an idling bill, because I've received so many complaints from many of you about idling trucks that are clearly polluting our neighborhood, blocking our streets. Amazon and others are using our public streets as if they're a warehouse. It's completely unacceptable. So my bill, which is Intro 684, it significantly increases the penalties from $350 to $2,000 for a first-time violation, and it keeps going up. We can no longer have it where these companies are viewing it as a cost of doing business. So my bill has a hearing. It has a supermajority of co-sponsors in the council, and I'm confident that you'll make some good progress on that. Third issue is rat mitigation. I've already come before the board talking about it, but I want to really report on the extraordinary success we've had in the district. As many of you know, I funded through Wildcat an exterminator that we found, and we began on East 86th Street. We began with the tree pits. We're literally fumigating the boroughs. We have had a 100% eradication on East 86th Street. We went from 100 boroughs to 0. We've now sent our exterminator block by block throughout District 5. So if you call us, let myself know, or Cameron Kaufman, who's on this, know, we will send the exterminator to you. And you might have seen the Daily News profile the work that we're doing last week on this. So I'm really excited that we're seeing some progress on it. Another issue is traffic safety. My office has heard tremendous concerns about traffic safety at the intersection of East 62nd and 2nd Avenue. So you all have asked for traffic calming measures. I wrote a letter with Borough President Levine to ask for safety changes at this intersection, and DOT is now considering those to work on a protected left turn from 2nd Avenue to 62nd and to make that intersection safer. Finally, just one other update. I want to make sure you know I updated the board last month on a bill. I have a hospital transparency bill called the Healthcare Accountability and Consumer Protection Act. This would mandate that every single New York City hospital would need to disclose their prices for every single procedure. So my bill now has a hearing. It will be February 23rd at 10. If you're interested in this issue, it's such an important issue because we've all known people, ourselves included, who we go into the hospital and then you come home and you have a multi-$1,000 bill. And we are seeing huge discrepancies where a colonoscopy at one hospital in New York City is over $10,000 or $2,000 at another hospital. Hospitals are not disclosing their prices, and there are huge variables around that. So I hope that you will be able to come. And finally, I want to plug 2 upcoming events. I'm doing a shredding event on January 27th, 8:30 to 11:30 at the Chapin School. That was it. That's my last update. So any questions for me, happy to answer them.
Of course, we don't have time for questions, but thank you very, very much for
Thank
joining us
you.
and for all your work on behalf of the community.
Thanks so much.
All right, we'll now move on to the public session. So everybody who is signed up to speak and called on will have 2 minutes to speak. We're very strict on the time, and we'll ask you to unmute, and then you'll unmute yourself and be able to speak. And so with that, we will start with, well, Will, is there any other stuff we have to cover before we go into the public session?
Yeah, just to help us out as Russell calls your name, if you've already signed up for the public session, number 1, be listening for your name. Number 2, if you can help us find you very quickly in the chat or in the participants list, you can go to the reactions icon at the bottom of your screen and press the raise hand button, please. And be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting whenever Russell calls your name and I start the timer.
And if I mispronounce anybody's name, I apologize in advance. So with that, let's start with Kate Madigan.
Kate, you're going to see a timer on the screen, and you'll hear a beep whenever you've run out of time.
Great, thank you, everybody. Hello, Community Board 8. My name is Kate Madigan, Government Relations Coordinator from the Public Theater. I'm here today to provide a few updates. Firstly, the 18th annual Under the Radar Festival is currently running through January 22nd at the Public Theater and 5 partner venues. Under the Radar is a world-renowned international theater festival shining a spotlight on new theater work from around the world, features 36 artists from 9 countries. Secondly, downtown, Joe's Pub has a full slate of shows planned through January and February. Joe's Pub is dedicated to supporting performing artists at every stage of their careers, and you can support them while enjoying food and refreshments. Thirdly, our winter season will begin in February with the premiere of The Harder They Come on the 17th and runs until mid-March. Then Dark and Disabled Stories opens February 28th and also runs until mid-March. And fourthly, our free Shakespeare in Central Park is back this summer. Hamlet is on stage and will show from June 8th to August 6th. Due to our ongoing renovations of the Delacorte, only one show will premiere this summer. As always, each performance is free and even now more accessible. I will update the community board on local ticket distribution dates. Thank you so much. And we remain committed to providing free and low-cost tickets for all of our programming. So please visit our website, publictheater.org, or call Audience Services at 212-967-7555. I'll put everything in the description and make sure that the community board has all of my information and the details. And Happy New Year. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Let's go next to Matt Bauer.
So good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Bauer. I'm the director of the Madison Avenue Business Improvement District. And every month, I try to give a little update about the new stores that have opened up since our last meeting on Madison Avenue. Since our last meeting that opened up on Madison Avenue. It's so important. The community supports new businesses when they're here. It makes a tremendous difference. So at the very last week, right before Christmas, 2 new stores opened up on the same block between 74th and 75th. Irene Neuwirth, which is independent jewelry brand, opened up at 937 Madison Avenue. And Kernizabet, which is a multi-brand fashion boutique, opened up at 943 Madison Avenue. And we've actually had our first new store opening for 2023, which is Versace, which opened up at their new flagship at 747 Madison Avenue. That's 65th Street. So all opened up this year. This opened up since our last meeting. I want to also say thank you to the community board, so many different groups, for their efforts regarding the issues about the Link 5G towers. They really would be a detriment to our district. I really want to say thank you as well to Borough President Levine and Council Member Powers for all their support on this issue. And just once again, thank you all for supporting Madison Avenue. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Elizabeth Rose Daly.
Okay, thank you, Russell. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Rose Daly, Community Relations Manager for the Frick Collection. I hope you all had wonderful holidays. And let me congratulate all the new board officers who were sworn in this evening. Tonight, I'd like to tell you a bit about what's on at Frick Madison. First, if you have not already seen the installation by the Danish Icelandic artist Olafur Eliasson, hurry, because it closes this Sunday, the 22nd. That will be your last day to see his color experiment number 109, which is a response to Monet's Italian Winter, which is one of the Frick's largest impressionist works, or one of our few impressionist works. But you will have more time to see our other special exhibit, the AVR drawings, which is a promised gift of 26 drawings in pastels comprised of works by artists such as Edgar Degas, Jean-Honoré Fragonard, John Singer Sargent, and it will be on view through February 26th. And coming up in February, on February 16th, we'll be opening a new show namely the Gregory Gift, which is a remarkable group of 28 fine and decorative works of art that was recently bequeathed to the Frick by Alexis Gregory, who you may know is the founder of Bundle Press. So stay tuned for more news as we get closer. And if you'd like to do a deeper dive into our collection, you'll find much more information on our website, www.frick.org, where you can also find Cocktails with the Curator. As a reminder, Frick Madison is located on Madison Avenue at 75th Street, and we're open Thursdays through Sundays from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And while you're there, you can also go downstairs and get coffee and pastries at the Sister Yard. And pay what you wish admission is offered on Thursdays from 4 to 6 p.m. And I hope to see you all at Frick Madison. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Lauren Hauptman, please.
Hello. Can you hear me? You can. My name is Lauren Hauptman. I live at 63rd and 2nd. My apologies if this is not the correct meeting at which to bring this up, but I urge the board to take up the cause of sidewalk safety, specifically around the riding of bicycles on sidewalks. This behavior has proliferated in my neighborhood. I can nary take my dog for a walk without being nearly mowed down by the myriad bicycles riding on the sidewalks. They're mostly delivery bikes, mostly electric delivery bikes, and of late, motorcycles have joined the sidewalk parade. I'm shocked more people have not been killed. There are often traffic police on my corner, and instead of doing anything about what has become a true menace, they generally just move out of the bicyclist's way and let them ride down the sidewalk. It's bad enough the bicycles do not obey traffic laws or traffic lights when on the street or in the bike lane. It is galling that they have taken away the only place where pedestrians should be truly safe. Thank you for listening. I hope the community board can help address and fix this dangerous situation.
Thank you very much. And Lauren reminded me, I forgot to mention, please, if you're speaking from the public, at the start of your remarks, just identify where you're from, please. It's helpful for us to get a sense of whether folks are, in the district or from elsewhere. So please remember to do that. And so next we will go to Alia Mulkson, please.
Hi, my name is Alea Molson. I'm relatively new to the neighborhood. I live at 76th and 1st. I would like to suggest the idea to the Metropolitan Museum of Art to consider public art on the back walls of the museum, something that's maybe a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to the beauty of Central Park and the trees while you're there. And I'm wondering if somebody on this board could help make that connection for me.
Yeah, if you can email the board office, and we'll follow up with them and you and try and connect you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's go next to, and you can see we'll put the email in the chat. Let's go next to Martin Mailer.
Good evening. My name is Martin Mailer. I'm an attorney. I happen to be the attorney for a restaurant known as JoJo. JoJo has been at 160 East 64th Street since the early 60s. It recently applied, or is going to apply, for what's known as a corporate change. The only thing that's changing, JoJo will remain exactly as it is. The chef and owner is the world-renowned Jean-Georges. He is just changing his corporate structure, which necessitated informing the board. And we were approved by the committee that oversees SLA matters. And they asked us to do certain things. We've done everything they've asked. We put a chain fence around an outdoor structure. We've taken away the electricity that was inside the premises when it's not in use. We've gone further than we should have in the sense that we have repainted it. It is something that is needed, unfortunately, because of the COVID situation. And I would ask that the full board go along with the recommendation of the committee and approve the corporate change. Again, the corporate change really has nothing to do with the outdoor shed. But there was discussion about the shed. We want to be proactive in the neighborhood. We want to be good neighbors, and we've done everything we were asked to do. And I would ask that the application, or at least that the recommendation of Community Board 8 is that they approve the corporate change. And I thank you.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Susan and Joel Mindell, please.
I see someone named Susan in the participants. If that is Susan Mindell, please go ahead and unmute and we'll get your timer started. I do not see Joel.
Yeah, it's one sign up, so I think that makes sense.
Look for a prompt on your screen to unmute if that is Susan Mindell. Otherwise, we can come back to them.
Okay, we can also go to Jeremy Mustax.
Jeremy, look for the prompt on your screen to unmute.
Thank you so much, and good evening, Community Board 8. Thanks in advance for your time. Martin, I work for John George Restaurant, and Martin just spoke a moment ago, joining the call, obviously, and thanking everyone in advance for their consideration to approve the corporate change, and looking forward to continued partnership in this amazing community that we have a business in. So that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Dylan Geronimo Kennedy.
Dylan, just look for the prompt on your screen and follow it to unmute. Dylan, just look for the unmute button on your screen.
Sorry about that. Can people hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to speak very briefly. I wasn't able to attend the street fairs meeting yesterday, and I haven't been able to see the minutes, so I don't know the community board's position on all of them. I just wanted to say that I love street fairs. I love every time I see them, and so I just wanted to voice extremely broad support for all of them, and that they all may be approved without any changes or reservations. That is it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next is Evelyn David. Just a reminder, please let us know where you're from at the start of your remarks, where you live.
Evelyn, you can unmute. Should be *9 to unmute. Sorry, *6 to unmute. *9 raises your hand. Evelyn, just hit * and then 6 on your phone. Maybe she stepped away from the phone.
Okay, let's go to Phil Kogan.
Phil, go ahead and unmute.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I live at 3rd Avenue and East 74th Street. I'm speaking tonight in opposition to congestion pricing as it's being proposed. There are a lot of reasons to oppose congestion pricing, such as MTA's terrible track record regarding fiscal responsibility. But I want to focus on tonight on 2 fatal flaws regarding the environmental assessment. First of all, the environmental assessment was prepared for another city. I mean, that other city was called New York City, but it was pre-pandemic. And our city has changed dramatically, and yet the environmental assessment has not changed at all. They're making assumptions based on a city that no longer exists. Secondly, the environmental assessment makes a lot of assumptions that are just incorrect. And in fact, they're in opposition to human nature. One of them is that there will be no impact on parking, street parking, north of 59th, because they assume that people will take mass transit or pay the congestion pricing fee, and that they will not park north of 59th. That is in opposition to what we all know to be true in human nature. There are a lot of other reasons to oppose. There isn't enough time to go into them all now, but I believe the board should take these problems into account when they make their determination about the fate of congestion pricing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Melanie Gersten, please.
Okay. Thank you for the time to speak today. My name is Melanie Gersten. I'm a resident and shareholder of 160 East 91st Street, and I'm speaking out in opposition to the lack of a light well recess in the construction plans of the building immediately adjacent to mine, 150 East 91st Street. Redeemer Presbyterian purchased 150 and has since demolished the residential building that was there and that had neighbored 160 for the past 100 years. Redeemer is now in the process of constructing a 12-story church at 150. Now, prior to the demolition, there had always been a 15-foot recess serving as a light well between 150 and 160. This light well allowed for the 24 west-facing units in our building, as well as the former east-facing apartments of 150 to have access to light and air. And this includes 8 studio apartments in our building whose only windows face this recess. Redeemer's construction plans that were approved late last year include no light well. They're planning to build right up to the property line, blocking all the light and air previously provided by the 100-year-old recess. So my neighbors and I are not opposed to the construction of the church, but we have made numerous requests for a modest 5-foot recess that would provide light and air to our west-facing apartments. The Upper East Side Patch reported on this story in October, and I'm hoping to bring this to the attention of the community. And with the shift to remote work since COVID, many of our apartments have also become our offices. We spend numerous hours in our homes, and this won't be possible without access to light and air. We don't think we're being unreasonable. We're hoping the community board can take a stance with our shareholders and appeal to Redeemer for a light well in their construction plans. We are on the agenda for next week's Zoning and Development Committee meeting, and I believe some of my neighbors will be speaking on this call too. So thank you for considering this issue.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Diane Forgione.
Thank you. I'm following up to Melanie Gersten's request. I am here, my name is Diane Forgione and I reside at 160 East 91st Street. I'm here to tell you about the grave impact this Redeemer Church project will have directly upon me should they not include a light well in their plans. I live in a 284 square foot studio with one window that faces the church project. With the removal of the previous light well, I will be completely devoid of light. I will have no ability to open my window and circulate my apartment with fresh air. More importantly, the church's plans will bring their building directly up to my fire escape. I am in great fear that if I should ever need to use the fire escape in a fire, there will be nowhere for the smoke to go and I will perish while attempting to scale the ladders. I am 56 years old. I just paid my mortgage off. This is all I have financially. The loss in value to my apartment will be devastating and will strongly affect my ability to retire. We have been asking the church for 2 years to scale back 5 feet of space, but they have been resolute from the start that they will not give so much of an inch in their plans. The church is upsetting the livelihood of a building that has been the pillar of our neighborhood for 100 years. The well-being of the people residing here is not worth 5 feet of space to them. I have been living here for 25 years. I moved here in 1997 after leaving my parents' home for the first time. I started out as a renter and then bought my apartment from the gentleman who rented it to me. I thought I'd spend all my working years here building up my nest egg from scratch. The church project is literally and figuratively squeezing me out of my home. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Let's go next to Charles Howell.
Hello, everyone. My name is Charles Howell. I am piggybacking on the comments of my neighbors, Melanie and Diane. I'm a resident and shareholder at 160 East 91st at Lexington Avenue. On behalf of residents in my building, I'd like to bring the board's attention to a topic that I believe is on the agenda for next Tuesday's zoning committee meeting, specifically our concerns about the imminent construction of a new building next to ours at 150 East 91st. For more than 100 years, a light well of approximately 15 feet has separated our building from the neighboring building at 150 East 91st. This property, the neighboring property, was purchased by the Redeemer Presbyterian Church in 2020. They have since demolished the existing 6-story building and are proposing to build a new 12-story building that will occupy the full width of their lot. In other words, they do not plan to preserve the light well that has historically separated our buildings, thereby effectively cutting off light and air to windows in about 20% of the apartments in our building. I think it's important to note the affected windows in our building are not lot line windows. But if the new owner proceeds with their plans, the new building will be no more than 3 feet from these windows. It's also important to note that we welcome the church's presence on our block. They will be an asset to our neighborhood. We are simply asking that as a good neighbor, they provide a reasonable setback between our buildings to preserve the access to light and air in our homes. We're hoping for the community board's support for our position, and we thank you for considering this issue.
Thank you. Next is Manny Gordon, please.
Yes, hello.
We hear you.
Yeah, you're able to hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm also a resident at 160 East 91st Street, and I won't repeat what was said. I think the point was made very clearly, but my apartment is on one of those lines that faces west and will be negatively affected by the church building their buildings so close to where I am. As was said, obviously, the property value is going to plummet through no fault of my own or our own. And we just simply ask the church to love thy neighbor, love thy neighbor, and be somewhat compassionate. And that's all we really ask of them. 5 feet of space is not a lot to ask for. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're getting close to the end of the public session here. So for the folks that I called previously who I guess weren't here, Evelyn, David, and Susan and Joel Mindell, last chance to raise your hand if you still want to speak. And so let's go now to Alita Camp.
Hi, thanks, Russell. Happy New Year, everyone. I just want to mention on behalf of the Arts Committee that we will be hosting and presenting a craft show at the Church of the Holy Trinity, 316 East 88th Street on Saturday, February 11th from 11 to 4. The Arts Committee, the board office have been working really hard on this, and we hope that the public and board members will be able to join us. From what I've seen, there is a lot of interesting and beautiful crafts. I'll end there, say thank you to the board office, the rest of the committee, and I hope to see you there. The church has been very welcoming and it's a lovely place. So thank you, everyone, and hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye. I mean, I'm not leaving, but goodbye.
We got it. Thank you. All right, let's go next to, it looks like Evelyn has raised her hand. So Evelyn, go ahead. And you can unmute, I believe, with *6.
Correct. *6, Evelyn. Go
Hello.
ahead. You're unmuted.
Yes. Hi. Oh, thank you. The phone is, never mind. I won't go into details. God, technology. Brother. Okay, so I want to say something about congestion pricing really fast. It came up in the last meeting that the 60th Street, there is in the MTA write-up or the plans, it calls 60th, somebody from Tennessee or whoever's doing this is calling 60th Street downtown business zone. Okay, I humbly request that we send a letter to these people. 60th Street is Midtown Manhattan, which is residential and at the top of the business section, right? I mean, I don't know how it is Midtown, but it's like 57th Street has got, okay, lots of stores on it, right? 60th Street doesn't have lots of stores. It's got lots of residential buildings. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't know if it's possible to send them a little note saying, hey, you guys, you know, we're not downtown, period. And if you're aiming for the downtown, call it what it is. It is not the downtown business zone. It is Midtown residential where we're doing this. Anyway, that's kind of where I started to get really questioning how this all came about. I have another little thing I want to say about the illegal placards and the discussion about people that work for the Board of Education, teachers. It is highly restricted, by the way, for teachers to get a placard. We can only use them in front of schools, and I don't even have one because there aren't any left for the school where I'm working. And it's only in front of schools or very, very specially designated areas where the DOT has put signs up, right? So for anybody that thinks that we get a placard and we get to, you know, anyway, we can't. That's all. Thank you very much.
All right. So that brings us to the end of the public session. So we will now move on to the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to do that, which you can do with a thumbs up? Okay, is there a second? Okay, anyone opposed to adoption of the agenda? All right, very good. And then adoption of last month's minutes, which again, thumbs up will do it. Yep, and I assume Elizabeth is seconding. Anyone opposed? All right, very good. So with that, we will turn to the Manhattan Borough President's Report, and we'll turn it over to Mina briefly because I think Borough President may join us later. But for now, let's unmute Mina.
Hi, good evening, Community Board 8. Happy New Year. Yes, the Borough President does plan to join. He'll be quite a bit late, but hopefully he can get on before the meeting ends. But I did just want to briefly announce that the Borough President is having his State of the Borough address later on this month. So that will be January 31st. That's on a Tuesday at 6 p.m. at the City College of New York. The address is 160 Convent Avenue. And we hope that you join. He'll be just, going over what has been accomplished in 2022 and his goals and plans for 2023. And so we hope that you all can join us. In addition to, I do just want to briefly just also announce that capital funding projects are also currently being accepted. Will open, next week or by our office. So you can start if you have any schools, not-for-profit organizations that are interested in capital funding requests that they can, currently they could start signing up with our budget team, our budget unit to have those one-on-one conversations about what that process looks like and what documents need to be submitted. I'm sure the Borough President will also touch on this, but urging, doesn't matter if it's going to be mentioned twice, to please get the word out. I'll put the link in the chat one to RSVP for the State of the Borough address, in addition to our capital funding link as well. So thank you, and I'll be on for the rest of the evening.
Thank you. All right, so now we'll proceed with the rest of the elected officials reports. So as usual, please raise your hand if you are here for an elected official report, and we will take everybody in turn for 2 minutes. And let's start with Audrey Tannen.
Hi, everyone. Congratulations, best wishes, Russell, and all the board members on the installation this evening. I just want, obviously, sessions begun in Albany. Liz is in Albany. February will be the round of budget talks and hearings, and there'll be a schedule that is still being worked on who's coming when. And of course, we'll share that with you once we have it. Do know that tomorrow, Liz is, along with her colleagues, conducting a public hearing regarding the requirements, both the legislative and budget requirements that will be necessary to really implement the climate fund, which did pass. So That will be streaming all day on the New York Senate webpage. So that's something you can all watch. Councilmember Menon mentioned earlier today the hearing that took place about the cannabis, and we all know, and Liz shares the concerns about the unlicensed shops that are happening and popping up all over the city, and most especially in Community Board 8. She did submit written testimony, which I'll share with you all, that express her concerns, and also her hope that the NYPD will still enforce what they can enforce, which is not selling cannabis to minors and a number of other things. So I'll share that with you in the chat, and have a good meeting. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, next let's go to Hannah Wienerman.
Hi, good evening, Community Board 8. I'm Hannah Wienerman. I'm the community liaison for the Upper West Side for Congressman Nather's office. So I'm going to keep it very brief tonight. I really just wanted to introduce myself, and you can reach out to our office about any federal issue. We, happily are accepting casework. The best way to submit casework to our office is going through our website at nadler.house.gov. When you get to the website, there'll be different pull-down menus. I should say services, and the first item says help with a federal agency. You can click on it. Also, just submit other things you want to share with our office, any community issue, any comment that you have about legislation. You can also use the contact button. The other way you can connect to our office is to call our main line at 212-367-7350. But again, I will put all that information in the chat, including my personal information. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can feel free to reach out directly. We're really looking forward to working with Community Board 8. We've already sat down with Russell and Will and talking about a lot of different ways that the congressman would like to get involved. So I will be your liaison. Feel free to contact me at any time, and I look forward to joining you every month. Take care.
Thank you very much, and welcome. Let's go next to Eric Straza.
Eric, we can't hear you. Maybe check to make sure your mic is plugged in, or if you're using your phone, that's not muted. Yeah, there you go.
Great. Thanks so much for that. Appreciate it. And thank you, Russell. Great to see everyone today. My name is Eric Straza. I am the community coordinator for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, specifically for the Midtown area, filling in for one of my colleagues tonight. And I've done so before, so great to see some familiar faces on here. Just had two really quick announcements from our office, one of which is that we recently released a 2022 year in review. We rolled it out kind of like a newsletter, and it explains a lot of the work that we've done down the spectrum throughout the last year, all the way from things we've done to combat gun violence, to combating hate crime throughout the borough of Manhattan, whether that's expanding our hate crimes unit, adding more resources, things like that, all the way to protecting tenants and the creation of our new tenant and housing and tenant protection unit. So if anyone's interested in learning more, we encourage you to go check that out on our website. Last thing I had for you all was that DA Bragg recently convened local elected officials, colleagues, and other community members to announce a significant funding opportunity and an RFP specifically for service providers and other organizations that have a peer navigator programs. This is basically a dual initiative where we have a certain amount of the total of $9 million allotted for neighborhood navigators, which is specifically geared towards intervening and connecting individuals to services before they are arrested and before they enter the criminal justice system. Then we have other portions of the total amount for court-based navigators, which do things like connecting people to services after they're arrested, case management, things like that. So really exciting announcement, or update on that rather, is that we recently actually released the RFP for the neighborhood navigator portion, and that can be found on our website if anyone wants to learn more. That's all I have for you tonight. So great to see everyone, and thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Let's go next to Courtney Pharisee, please.
Hi, good evening. I'm Courtney Pharisee, representing the Office of Assemblymember Rebecca Seawright. It's been a busy and productive start to this legislative session. Assemblymember Seawright has been appointed to be chair of the People with Disabilities Committee. We look forward to working with the committee members and advocating for the over 3 million adults and close to 500,000 children and infants with disabilities, their families, and their caregivers. We're facing a tremendous workforce crisis for this vulnerable population. So we'll be fighting for additional funding during budget for organizations supported by the State Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. Next week, hundreds of New Yorkers will gather at the Capitol to rally for the second passage of our Equality Amendment. During a special session in July, the New York State Legislature voted for its first passage, which is the first step toward amending the New York State Constitution to bar discrimination on the basis of sex, including sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, pregnancy outcomes, and reproductive health care and autonomy. Assemblymember Seawright looks forward to next week's rallies and action in support of second passage so voters can decide on this measure on their ballots in 2024. As always, please consider our office a resource. Stop by 1485 York Avenue, our community office, between 78th and 79th Streets. Call us at 212-288-4607 or send us an email at cwriter@nyassembly.gov. Thank you.
Thanks. Next, let's go to Terrell Brock.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Terrell Brock, and I'm a community liaison from State Senator Jose Serrano's office. I hope everybody has had like a wonderful start to the new year. I am currently going to going forward. I'm going to be covering Community Board 4 in the Bronx, and I would like to introduce my staffer, our staffer, Summer Bedford, who's going to be covering CB8 going forward. But before we put it on, I'd like to give a special thanks to Alita Clamp, Will Brightbull, Russell Squire, Chandra Coleman, and Ed Hartog for the assistance and partnership over the years. I guess, can we please put my co-worker Summer Bedford on?
Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Like Terrell said, I'm going to be the CBA representative for State Senator Jose Serrano's office going forward. I'll put my information down in the chat. If you have any issues with any state agencies, you can reach out to us. If you've already been working with Terrell on any issues, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to continue working with you. But going forward, I will be attending the meetings and I'm happy to help with anything that you need. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Summer and Terrell. We're sorry to see you go. Sorry that you won't be at the meetings anymore. You've been a great rep for Senator Serrano, but I know we'll still see you around the neighborhood, so that's good. So let's go next to Jessie K.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jessie. I am the Community Board 8 liaison for Councilmember Powers' office. Thank you for having me tonight. I just have a few quick announcements. We just wanted to remind everyone that the City Council discretionary funding application for fiscal year 24 is available. I'm going to send that link to Will so that he can put that in the chat. If you would like to just set up a time to discuss any budget related questions, please feel free to reach out to our budget director, Haley Brundage. I'm also going to put her email in the chat. I also wanted to remind everyone that Councilmember Powers is continuing to monitor new developments in the Link 5G proposal that was put forth by the Mayor's Office of Technology and Innovation. In December, he sent a letter to OTI detailing his concerns about the towers being unfit for residential neighborhoods, and he continues to express his solidarity with CB8 residents who oppose the current plan. If you have any questions about the plan or you want to, express other concerns or comments, feel free to reach out to me. I also just wanted to reiterate what Councilmember Menon said about the illegal marijuana vendors. Councilmember Powers also attended the oversight hearing and is monitoring the situation and working with NYPD to tackle these issues on a case-by-case basis as new shops open. And lastly, just wanted to talk about the Stuytown Peter Cooper Village Tenants Association. They celebrated a ruling made by the New York State Supreme Court to protect approximately 6,200 apartments that would have faced a loss of rent and tenure protections. And this ruling represents the first major tenant-led attempt to validate the intent of HSTPA, and it will impact citizens and tenants citywide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Let's go now to the chair's report. So I just want to say at the start of my third and final term as chair, it is Great to be back. Thank you all again for giving me the opportunity to continue to be the chair. And I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with all of you. I think we're going to have a very busy and productive year. And this is going to be the year when I think we will finally be back in person. So everybody stay tuned for that and get excited. And I want to also just congratulate my fellow officers. Some of them are returning, some of them are new. But for all of you, I'm looking forward to working with you as well. And anybody who ever has a question or concern, please don't hesitate to reach out to me with, by email or by phone. And the last thing that I'll say is just a reminder for folks, we want to try to prevent these meetings from going on too long. And so just, in your remarks, say what you want to say what you need to say. But if you can try to be sort of pithy and to the point, I think that's helpful and also probably more persuasive, frankly. And, please don't repeat what other folks have said. And as always, everybody, please do be collegial and respectful to one another. And with that, I will turn it over to Will for the district manager's report.
Thanks, Russell. Well, Happy New Year to everyone, and congrats to the new officers who were sworn in today. We're all in the staff very excited to work with you guys. We do have a staffing update. Our new community associate, Kevin Wu, started last week. He's reached out to several committees that he's going to be assigned to, and is very excited to be working with the members of CB8 in the community. I want to flag that next Friday at 4 p.m., our new assembly member, Alex Boris, will be interviewed on the next installment of CB8 Zooms. He will be interviewed by Billy Freeland from CB8. And as Alita mentioned, there's a craft show coming up next month. I'm going to put the link to that in the chat again as well. And if you haven't already signed up for our newsletter, it's the best way to stay informed on what's coming up and what changes are happening on committee agendas. So I'm going to put the link for that in the chat as well. So Happy New Year, and I'll hand it back over to Russell.
Thank you, and welcome, Kevin. So let's go now to our committee reports, and we will start with the Street Life Committee and Abraham. And I will just remind folks that it is always in order if there are a number of unanimous items in a committee report to move to take them all together.
Great. Thank you, Russell, and I will take you up on that. So first, I'm going to go through the street life items. We had several street life items on the committee meeting, and then we had some items which were joint with the Health, Seniors, and Social Services Committee. I also welcome unmuting the chairs of the HSSS committee as well in preparation of the joint items there. So with regards to unanimous resolutions for street life, we had items 1A, 2B, and 2C, which were all unanimous. Ed, I see a hand. Is that a motion to take them all together?
Yes, it is.
Great, thank you. Okay, so with that, is anyone opposed to taking them all together? Okay, good. So then with that, I'd say we can call the question. I'd hand it over to the secretaries. Again, this is 1A, 2B, and 2C.
Right, Addison is up for his first vote.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. I'm honored to be doing this today. So if you're voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause, please raise your hand now. And seeing none, I think that this one will go down as unanimous. Thank you.
Great.
But you got to start with an easy one.
And we'll get to do we'll get you the count at the next vote.
Sounds good. Thank you, Addison. Okay, we had one non-unanimous approval. This was item 2A. This was the corporate change application for JoJo. There was mention of it in the public session. So this was the conversation topic here revolved around the outdoor dining enclosure that is operated by JoJo's or not currently operated. And there were concerns and vocalizing of concerns from the residents about people camping out in there, the electricity use and refuse being of concern with regards to that outdoor establishment. In the discussion, the applicant agreed as part of the stipulations for the approval that it would keep all sides of the outdoor dining structure clean from debris and trash, that it would install a gate to prevent any individual from entering the structure when it's not being in use, and they had committed to do that prior to this meeting. I have gone personally walked by it, and that gate is there, so that I can confirm that that has been abided by. They agreed to provide a contact number for the general manager or another authorized individual who can address any concerns that any individual of the public may have with regards to the structure. And lastly, that it would look into shutting off the power source to the electrical outlets to further dissuade any kind of usage of that structure. So that is, to summarize, it was adopted by a vote of 11-1. So first I see Marco, so I will go to Marco first for any comments.
Thank you, Abraham. Last week, Channel NY1 News reported the city demolished a shed because it has been breaking many regulations. And I am opposing this restaurant's request until it removes its shed. This applicant said that they are working only 5 days a week, which I believe this restaurant is doing very well financially. And I am very happy to hear of the success of this business. Then apparently they don't need a shed outside because they're operating only 5 days a week. Thanks to the community complaint, the applicant's attorney is claiming that the electricity, as well as the chair, was removed. Otherwise, this problem would never have been addressed. This issue was the community members in attendance and the applicant said that there is a homeless person that is using this shed during the restaurant's 2 days resting period and after the restaurant employees leave at the end of the day. The serious concern was a homeless person was using an electrical equipment because the restaurant manager left the electricity on inside the shed, creating a potential fire hazard condition. The residents are also complaining this homeless person is using the streets for these biological needs, affecting the sanitary conditions of this street. Furthermore, a fellow community member is supporting to build a scissor door, increasing non-compliance regulations of the shed. According to FEMA, in the future, our city would face a hurricane type 1 with winds over 95 miles per hour. And these poorly built sheds would be destroyed and their materials will be flying all over, destroying all surroundings, buildings, and injuring people. Therefore, our city is becoming the leader in anti-resilience, and that is wrong. In conclusion, I believe this restaurant should remove this shed because financially it's doing fine and creating unsafe and unwelcome conditions for this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Any other hands, questions, comments on this resolution? If not, then I would welcome a motion to call the question. Rebecca?
Call the question.
Great, thank you. Is anyone opposed to calling the question? Okay, seeing none. Well, in that case, I would hand it over to our secretaries to go for the vote on this as a approval with, well, as a motion to approve as presented and go to the roll. Thank you.
Okay, so on item number 2A, is anyone voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause? Marco?
Thank you, no.
Okay. And Michelle Birnbaum?
No.
Anyone else? Seeing none, let me just tally up the votes and I will get back to you. But the motion passes.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we will now go to section 3. This was the joint discussion of cannabis licensing. So again, I will happily invite Barbara, Rebecca, and Wilma to be unmuted. So we've had two resolutions that we approved and passed at the joint committee level. The first resolution, and we can also unmute Mohit if you wanted to add any color to any of the conversation as our resident expert. So the resolution one dealt predominantly with our response for the proposed regulations from the OCM and the CCB and things that we'd like to see in those proposed regulations from the CB8 perspective. It is a long resolution. If anyone wants me to read it, I can, but I think it kind of speaks for itself. But Mohit, if you want to do a summary, I'm happy to lend the mic to you.
I'd be happy to. Barbara, do you have any introductory comments?
Thank you, Mohit, for all of your knowledge in getting us through this. That's my comment.
Sure thing. Okay. So, just to level set for 3 seconds here, we're in a process of the state going through the development of regulations for the implementation of the marijuana bill. And there's a regulation that's been out there that is open for comment at the moment, which affects the ability for the community board to review applicants who want to open cannabis dispensaries and other types of establishments here in the community board district. And so the resolution allows for the community board through Russell to submit formal comment to the Office of Cannabis Management on some proposed amendments that we would like to see to those draft regulations. So that's the background on this resolution. And just flipping down to the resolution section, there are something like 10 or 11 bullet points here. I don't necessarily want to go into detail into all of them, though happy to answer any questions as they come up. But really, there's two parts. There's two parts here to these comments. And first is really trying to strengthen the ability for the city of New York as the municipality. Municipalities under the bill have some scope for taking regulatory action. It's a limited scope. It's certainly not as broad as the scope that is given to the state agency, the Office of Cannabis Management. But the municipality has some scope to implement some regulatory restrictions around things like hours, signage, et cetera. And so what these comments do is really try to really try to get the OCM through the regulatory process to provide more detail as to what those kinds of restrictions can be, and specifically around, and it asks for increased flexibility around putting a radius and citing. So that's the third bullet point there, the one that has the sub bullet points, is to really try to increase the ability for the city to have these requirements around where you cannot have certain cannabis establishments be cited. So that's the crux of what is here on the page. And then there are the secondary aspect, which really isn't here, but I'm happy to talk about and to make a friendly amendment, is to try to really beef up the ability for the community board to have substantive impact and substantive input as to the licensing of these establishments. So right now, the regulatory authority is primarily with the state. There is some at the city level, but the community board is a purely advisory process. We would hold a hearing and submit our recommendation, and our record as to why we like or don't like a certain applicant moving forward. And there's a inherent weakness in our position because outside of New York City, that ability to make those comments lies with the same body of the municipality that can also set regulations, right? So there is an ability there to actually create more tailored solutions and have more impact than what we have as a singular community board. And so, so I have a couple of recommended, changes or really additions, not changes, but additions to these current bullet points to ask the OCM to give the community board a little bit more leeway and say as to the citing of these establishments. Okay, so I'll leave it there. I'm happy to answer questions.
Can I make a friendly amendment, Joey? I mean, is that what you're asking? Somebody, I would love that to be a friendly amendment.
Yeah, I'm happy to read out the friendly amendment. Is that and the resolution I think is technically Abraham's, but so I don't know who needs to accept it. But
I can accept it.
Okay, so the friendly amendment is as follows. So one is amend the definition of community facilities to allow community boards, in addition to the city, to define community facilities in their own districts. Two, to allow applicants to require applicants to seek community board review of exterior signage and any changes to signage. Three, to require applicants as a condition of licensure to engage with the community board in an ongoing good faith manner. And four, to allow community boards to require a plan for licensees to safely manage delivery traffic, such as requiring off-sidewalk bicycle storage locations. So those are my 4 recommended bullet points to be added to the resolution.
Does somebody need to second that?
I'll second
So
it.
one of them,
Great, thanks, Will.
one of the items was to give us the ability to change their signage.
To review. So there's no ongoing review process for the community board and the applicant. And so as time goes on, reviewing the signage would be part of the initial review process the community board does with an applicant. But as times change, the applicant may rebrand. The request here is for the applicant to come back to the community board in case there's a change to the exterior signage. And this would complement the municipal authority, which the bill allows the city of New York and all the municipalities to set certain restrictions on signage. That is not an authority given to the community board, but I thought it would be appropriate if the community board had a review of changes to exterior signage.
And zoning, I believe, has some restrictions on signage. This would be beyond what zoning is for a regular.
Yes.
The regular pizza shop, I assume.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
Get some hands.
Let's go to Marco first and then Michelle.
Thank you, Abraham. I'm going to, this is basically, we can recommend whatever you want. It's nothing that is in a stand that they're going to accept. At this level, it's just only they want to hear a wish list. And I think in the major plan, the city of Yes, now they are saying that the signage inside of glass, they can cover 100% of the window. So the zoning is just only if they qualify or certify outside, but inside too. But the mayor wants to get rid of any signage inside. And then the glass, it will be covered completely for announcement of cannabis. And I think in that direction, I would like to request, if it's possible, is the cannabis, since the zoning resolution was created, cannabis was illegal. So there is no, in the appendix, anything about the cannabis. So the cannabis, what I strongly recommend is a request that all these kind of stores be sold in C2. Because it has to be more far away from residential districts rather to be in residential districts. I know everybody can use that one in any part of the city, but it makes more sense that these cannabis products, it should be used only in C2 and not in C1, which basically is predominantly in our. And I think that is what I strongly, I don't know if it's possible as a friendly amendment. Thank you.
Let me just speak to that for 1 second. So thank you, Marco, for that comment. And we did have a short conversation about that in the subcommittee, and the decision at the time was that there wasn't support in the subcommittee for that proposal. So from my perspective, I don't think I would like to see that added to this resolution. If there's a separate conversation that needs to go through zoning and development, I think perhaps we can have that, but I would suggest that we not have that as part of this resolution.
I would also suggest that if that is something that wants to be proposed, that be made as a separate resolution, independent of this one, and then we can discuss the merits of that on its own, because there was some back and forth on at this committee level. So I'd rather have that stand on its own if that is going to be put forward, and which is welcome to put forward. But for this particular one, I'd rather have it separate. For that one, next, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you. I think the signage is important because the zoning is primarily dealing with size, dimension, lighting, that kind of thing. But I think maybe as a community, we can pass judgment on appropriateness, because we don't want colorful candy looking signage that would lure children in, you know, that kind of thing. So I'd be very happy for the signage to come to us. The other thing is, I wonder if you discussed it. It was a little difficult for me to hear. And there's some background noise going on. If anybody knows who it is, if they can pay attention to it. But when this bill was first passed and the whole program launched, it was said that those dealers that had been operating shops illegally prior to the law were going to be given first preference to get licenses. This to me was unbelievable. Why you would reward somebody who was not compliant in the first place. I would think that the licenses, the first dibs on the licenses, would go to the people who waited for it to become legal and then decided to have a business. So number one is that I didn't see it in here, but I read it on my little, on the telephone. Is there anywhere that this is mentioned? Was this part of your discussion? And is there any way, whether it could be, if not added to this resolution, if we could perhaps have a separate resolution that maybe could address that we would like to see those who are operating legally be first in line to get the licenses. So those are sort of my points, whoever wants to address that.
I can take a
We
stab at
all
that.
bursting to answer that one.
Excuse me. I can take a stab at that, Michelle. So
A little louder, Mohit. I'm having difficulty hearing you. I'm sorry.
No worries. Okay, so I'm happy to try to answer that. So the process for the rollout of the legal market in New York really had two steps to it. The first step was what were called the card licenses, the CAURD, conditional adult use, I believe it's recreational dispensaries. And so that was step one. And that is the step that we're currently in. One such dispensary has opened up on the, I think it's Upper West, maybe it's Midtown West, but one such dispensary has opened, a second one is imminent. So, and then what we're primarily talking about today with this resolution is stage two of the market, which is what I'm calling regular licensees, which will be a mix of anyone, businesses. There is, I believe there is a priority process for individuals who have been harmed by the war on drugs, which includes individuals, Michelle, who have prior marijuana convictions. So I believe there is a process for those individuals to have some priority in the regular licensing process, but they certainly had priority in the card process. It was primarily those individuals and then nonprofit groups. So for example, the dispensary on the West Side is Housing Works. So they're the ones who opened that one. So, so in short, there definitely is a scope in the bill as it was written back in 2021 for individuals with these kinds of backgrounds and criminal histories to have certain involvement in the market. And this set of regulation that we're talking about today don't directly, discuss that, because that's really something that lies at the state level. The state has decided what their paradigm will be for the allocation of licenses, and these regulations don't speak to that. And I don't believe it would be in our best interest to say that we are going to use the background of these licensees as part of our review process. And so, so there's nothing in these recommendations that we have in this resolution to kind of give CB8 or community boards any additional authority over over that kind of review. Of course, if it comes up and it's an issue during the review process, we can certainly mention it in our report back to the OCM. But in short, I think there's part of the process is just fixed through the law, and it would require legislative changes. And to the extent that, on this resolution and speaking about, these draft regulations, I don't see any, direct action to be taken at the moment.
Mohi, can I add something to it? I don't think what Michelle said was exactly right as I understand it. In fact, that would be part of our process to see somebody was a bad neighbor, just like a bar coming to us. What they said for the card are people that have been affected by the drug war, not people that have opened illegal stores. So it was people that were the stop and frisk where they found some marijuana in their pocket and they ended up in Rikers for a year. It was those type, or nonprofits such as the Housing Works, which is the only one that is now open, that supports people that have been, but not people that have illegal establishments. In fact, I mean, Abraham, do you agree with me? And Mohi, those would be the ones that would come across and we would say they were bad neighbors. So I don't think, Michelle, that was the way I understood.
You're right. It's not the brick and mortar businesses. It's people who are caught up in the criminal justice system and all of that as a result of nonviolent marijuana offenses.
And what we're calling the regular ones that are coming in front of us, what I understand, those would be the ones that are veterans, disabled people, maybe minorities, for the most part. But also under the card, these are people that have had successful businesses for 2 years, that have proven that they are business people for 2 years. So I certainly hope and do not think that it's going to be the illegal establishments that are going to get the licenses.
Yeah, no, well, I will support this resolution. I think it's an excellent resolution. I didn't quite understand it the way you were explaining it. To me, it was people who had been in business, not people who had been users. I didn't read it that way.
But not illegal business, successful businesses for 2 years. These are people that have been affected by it, but also have been business owners, maybe owned a pizza shop or a clothing store.
No, I was, okay. No, I didn't read it that way. But anyway, it's a moot point at this point. I didn't read it that way.
Right.
But it's a moot point, and even if it were to be considered, I agree it does not belong in this bill. I will support this bill, and just want to emphasize that I am happy that signage is included in this. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Good. Any other questions, comments on this item? If not, I would welcome a calling of the question.
Call the question.
Great. Do I have a second?
Second.
Good. Any opposed? Okay, seeing none opposed, in that case, I will go to the roll for our secretaries.
Before we take the vote, I just want to point out that the vote on the last item was 42-2.
Thank you very much. Okay, so this is item 3A, resolution 1.
Thank you. Please raise your hand if you are voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause. A few more seconds. This resolution passed 45-0-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so then we had the second resolution, item 3B, and this originated from our concern that of the number of illegal retail facilities that have opened in the district which sell cannabis without having a license. And we wanted to come up with a solution and a mechanism whereby to dissuade this behavior, and we had a discussion that we thought it would be helpful to have the city and or state impose fines on landlords who are allowing these types of establishments to open without having an actual license to operate. Barbara, Mohit, Rebecca, Wilma, if you'd like to add anything.
I just wanted to confirm for the record that the last vote was on the amended resolution.
Oh, I don't think that was ever second.
No, we accepted it.
No,
so
no, it was accepted. I accepted it and it was seconded. So yes, it would be with the additions that Mohit.
With the friendly amendment, yeah.
Correct,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought it was Marcos. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yes. So yeah, with Mohit's 2 additions, yes. Okay, good. Okay. Any additions, thoughts on resolution 2? Did I cover that sufficiently? Mohit, Barbara, Rebecca, Wilma?
Can I just add a little bit to it?
Of course.
The license are conditional. So what they do is they get a license first, and then, unlike a bar, and then they get the brick and mortar store to sell it in. So this is going to say that you should not rent to something illegal, as something just opened on 2nd Avenue, a new store on 2nd Avenue that just opened up right near me. If after a year, if the conditional went away, we're not going to blame this is not to blame the landlords after. It's just for the conditional license, that they must have a license to begin with. Am I right? Do you agree?
Right. Yes. Upon the upon the entering of the lease,
right,
without having a provisional full or card license from the OCM. So if they can't demonstrate that they have that at the signing of the lease, and the landlord still allows it, then our suggestion would be that those should there should be an imposition of a fine there. Okay, with that, I'll go to the board if there's any questions or comments.
I don't see hands, so I'm going to call the question.
Great. Good. Second. Anyone opposed to calling the question? Seeing none, in that case, I will go to the secretaries for the roll on 3B resolution 2.
All righty. So if you're voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause, please raise your hand now. And seeing none, this will also go down as unanimous, 45.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Great. So let's go to the next committee report. Thank you all. So we'll move now to the Transportation Committee and Chuck and Craig.
Hi, good evening. Chuck, are you here yet?
Yes, I'm here. Go
Okay.
ahead, Craig. Take it away.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So we passed one resolution in transportation this month, and it relates to parking placards. So basically, it's a two-part resolution. Just to refresh your memory, we've, as a committee and as a board, passed a number of resolutions over recent years, most recently in 2021. And New York City has actually passed a number of laws in regards to parking placards and placard reform. But the problem is that they have not implemented those laws to the extent as required by the law, whether that's because of funding shortfalls, which we know is an issue, or just agencies not being able to keep up with the work that they were supposed to do. The laws haven't been accomplished, such as creating electronic databases and being able to essentially start anew with a new system of parking placards. So the committee attempted to try to revisit this again to try to see if we could do anything further to try to help move this process along. So we have a resolution where we're calling on New York City government agencies to put into effect protocols to enforce parking placard laws that already exist, such as using electronic methods of enforcement, as I discussed, linked to a centralized electronic database of placards that would essentially allow traffic agents to scan a placard and that can immediately identify whether a placard is legal and essentially automatically generate a ticket, and simplifying the process for enforcement. And then the second part of it is that we had passed a resolution where we were calling on traffic enforcement of the NYPD to take the lead on this, but we've since thought through this, and we think it would be more effective if we had parking enforcement agents, like the people who are giving tickets for illegal parking if you don't pay a parking meter, for example, to be able to write the tickets and be empowered and authorized to lead enforcement of illegal use of parking placards, since they're already walking the streets anyway and can easily identify them. So the resolution passed unanimously.
Any comments? No? Are we ready to vote then? Should we? Oh, Here's a
You got some
comment.
hands.
Peggy, yes, Peggy Price.
Call the question, please.
Is there a second? Okay, I see a second. Anyone opposed? Okay, secretaries call the roll.
Is there anyone voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause? Greg, do you have your hand up?
Yes. I'm gonna vote no on this one.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing no other hands up, this passes 44-1.
Excellent. All right, let's move to the next committee report, which is the Congestion Pricing Task Force. So Craig and Alita.
This is ridiculous.
All right, thank you. Alita, you unmuted yet?
No, I am.
Okay.
Hey, everyone. So we had two resolutions last month talking about congestion pricing. The first one has to do with the environmental assessment and whether it is to be considered outdated. It seems that a lot of the information upon which it was based was drawn from the 2010 census, which could not have anticipated the growth in hospitals or the revised traffic patterns due to the COVID pandemic, as well as individual rezonings of certain buildings. So the resolution deals with whether the environmental assessment should be relooked at and given contemporary surroundings. Craig, it looks like you want to amend that, add to that, subtract from that, something.
No, I think you basically hit the gist of what the resolution's about.
Okay, thank you. So then let's go to the board. Paul, and then Billy.
Thank you, Alida. I'm hugely in favor of congestion pricing, and importantly, without delay. The obvious benefits are well rehearsed before. I'm not going to go through all those things. This isn't a vote, though, I think, on congestion pricing. I note that, Craig, you voted no at committee or at the task force. And I'd very much like to hear why you voted no. I'm a bit lost by what's actually going on here, and I think you can clarify it for me, please.
Yeah,
Craig,
I guess.
Craig, you just, before you do that, I think you need to step away from your role as chair. Thank you.
Okay, yes, I was going to say, I guess if I'm doing that, I should step aside and speak in my personal capacity as opposed to co-chair of this committee. So I guess basically, in my mind, this is, I think, just an effort to, I don't know, nitpick and attack the environmental review process instead of looking what I think the bigger picture of what the congestion pricing laws actually is. And I think there's a conflation of impacts and as we're talking about here, and significant impacts as required, as what essentially the EA is doing in a legal sense. And that's what I think is driving this resolution. So like the EA doesn't say that there will be no impacts, but there won't be what are considered significant impacts. And significant impacts is a legal requirement, and EAs have a very rigid way in which they have to perform the work and what rises to that level of significant impacts. So yeah, it's true that no environmental impact will capture all up to the minute data and has to rely on assumptions or data that may be outdated, like if in this case when certain census data was used from 2010, even though it was performed in 2021 before the new census data packages came out. But there are people like myself as a planner who are actually, personally, I've provided some of the data that actually goes into these EAs and to the traffic model that was used for this EA in particular. So I think from my standpoint, it's important to make clear that the process is rigid in terms of how it is, but it also has people, professionals that are putting the document together and who do take into account things on a qualitative basis, like baseline conditions that may have changed, and that even that the significant impact that we talk about is a really high threshold to reach. And the reality is that conditions haven't changed so much as a result of the pandemic that it fundamentally changes whether there will be significant impacts or changes to congestion pricing's goals, which are clearly stated in the law as reducing congestion, improving air quality, and generating revenue to support the New York City transit network and the region's network, MTA's network. So yeah, it's a fact that there are fewer commuters arriving in New York City daily because of the pandemic, and that there have been other pandemic outcomes, and there have been certain developments that have taken place and other changes to the road network. But it's also a fact that traffic levels have returned to pre-pandemic levels, and that some of these changes, while maybe not specifically noted in the EA, are still considered as the EA is being put together. So in my mind, I think if someone's opposing congestion pricing, I can imagine why they'd want to have this law examined in this way. But I think that the core policies contained in the law aren't really impacted much by the findings in the EA, and I don't see a need to have it really relitigated as how we're suggesting it in this resolution.
Okay.
I hope
Thank
that's
you.
helpful. I'm sorry if I was rambling a little.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Craig. Did you have anything else, Paul?
No, thank you. Thanks, Anita.
Okay, Billy, and then Chuck.
Good evening, everybody. So I'm opposed to these resolutions, and for a couple of reasons I hope others will consider as well. One is, the resolutions call for kicking these issues back to elected officials and to rewrite the law. It's my understanding of the law is currently, the whole point was to give this to the Transportation Mobility Review Board to make decisions. I'm not sure that we're going to get a much better process if we ask legislatures to debate and amend and put a bunch of language in the law that maybe muddies the waters or confuses things. So my first point is I have confidence in the board itself to make certain decisions rather than having the legislature go over this. But more importantly, I view this as just representing further delay in congestion pricing. By going back to the legislature, by having things redone, by reassessing the environmental assessment, it's just going to further put off what I think is absolutely critical and urgent, policy need. For one, because of the demands of climate change. For second, demands of the congestion that is still really, really bad on our streets. But third, the need for the MTA to get much desperately needed funding. And I know there's skepticism about how the MTA spends that money and so forth, and I share some of it. They should be held more accountable, but they still need it, and they still need the financing. For example, for improving the signaling system of our trains that are actually going to improve commute times on the 456 and on the Q here on the Upper East Side. So I don't think we should be supporting something that's going to result in further delay. And I certainly don't think I have confidence in the legislature to further add language to this law. I don't think that's going to represent the type of progress we're looking for. So I'll leave it there, and I would encourage others to vote against both of these resolutions. Thanks.
Thank you, Billy. Chuck?
Yes, I'm very much against this resolution. The congestion pricing program has been delayed for a number of years because of what happened in Washington. And this is just a further attempt to delay things further, in my view. And this is an important program, not just for congestion purposes and doing something about the MTA, giving it adequate funding, but it's going to help. It's also has environmental aspects, which I'm very supportive of. And I think that we make a mistake if we just start to put further roadblocks into the implementation of this program, which has already been delayed. So I'm with Billy to oppose this resolution.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah, well, I'm for this resolution, and I won't go on as I do every month as to why I see problems with this overall policy. But I am glad that Craig did lay out the 3 policy goals of this, which are to reduce congestion, reduce pollution, and raise revenue. What I find particularly interesting is the fact that everybody holds up London as a tremendous example of how this works in terms of the first goal, reducing congestion. And I will put into the chat or wherever we have it, an article by Time Out this month on January 12th, 2023, by Ed Cunningham. That's not my phone. By Ed Cunningham, pointing out the most congested cities in the world. London is at the top of the list, which I find ironic. But nevertheless, as to the reduction of congestion, I think Congressman Torres makes an eloquent case about that and the movement of the air into the congestion effects. And as to raising revenue, I won't go on ad nauseum as to the inability to raise enough revenue with cars to service the debt, which is part of the revenue that we need here to support the bonds. But anyway, I support this resolution. I think that anything that slows down a policy of this large an impact to get it right is not a bad thing. I don't necessarily think that it was laid out, in the best way possible. And I'll leave it at that. And, I support the resolution. And Happy New Year, everybody, by the way. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. I just would like to point out some of the comments in favor of the resolution, which were that if they were looking and relying on information that was developed or relied upon that was found out during 2010, that the bases for the decisions that there was no significant impact were incorrect and no longer valid. And those were the comments. Again, they had to do with the recent spate of development along the hospital corridor and the changes in commuting, because a lot of people are not going to work 5 days a week. Andrew, I'm sorry, only board members are able to speak at this point. It's an executive session. So we'll go to Michelle and then Barbara. Thank you. But Michelle.
Call the question.
Are there any objections to, is there a second? Barbara, is that you? I see you nodding your head. Thank you. Any objections to calling the question? Okay, secretaries, take it away.
Okay, please raise your hand if you're voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause. Barbara Ruda,
No.
Paul,
No.
Chuck,
No.
Greg,
No.
thank you. Mohit,
No.
My name doesn't matter. I'm just an ordinary citizen who relies on the Times crossword.
Elizabeth Rose,
No.
David,
No.
Billy,
No.
Greg,
Oh, did you say me?
your hand is up.
Sorry, yeah, no, I'm in a different order. I'm at the top, so I didn't realize you got to me. Sorry.
Okay, so
I'm a no.
so you're not, okay, all right. So make sure. Jane,
No.
Bill, Bill Angelos?
We can't hear you, Bill, but I can read your lips saying no.
No, okay. Ms. Brown?
Mrs. Brown votes no.
Thank you. Lori?
No.
Felice?
No.
Rebecca? Danko?
No.
Peggy?
Abstain.
Rami?
No.
And I will be a no. Coleman?
Do we move on to the next resolution, Sanjaya, and you'll come back with a count?
Well, it looks like this did still pass with the no's. I can give you a total if you want. But
yes,
one and 1, 2, 3.
Please.
17 no's. So
What was the yes number?
I'll give you that. I can give you that when we come back, but it was, yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
But it definitely did pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandrea. The second resolution had to do with creating a timeline to ascertain whether the congestion pricing plan as implemented will meet its environmental, financial, and congestion goals and any other metrics that it establishes within a 3 to 5 year time frame. It was found some of the comments made with respect to that were that it's important to assure that goals are being met, since this is a financial will have a financial repercussion upon people who live in or travel to the zone. So there was that resolution, and that one passed as well with 1 vote for no. Any comments from board members on this? Craig, is there anything you'd like to add? I took that one on in case you're in the same position. So Craig, you have any comments?
I don't have any comments on what you said. I wouldn't mind being able to just step away and provide a little of my opinion for why I voted no.
Okay,
So-
well, you know what? Russell had his hand raised, and then Chuck, and then could we come to you? Is that all right?
Yes, as long as we're not ready to call a question.
No, don't worry, you'll have your chance to speak. So let's just go with people who've raised their hands, and then we'll come back to you. Thank you, Chuck. Russell, Chuck, and then Barbara. Did I call you Chuck? I'm sorry, Craig.
No, but Chuck raised his hand, so that makes sense.
You did. Okay, Russell.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you guys considered the possibility that if this sort of process of evaluating the success of the program against the goals and metrics is undertaken, and the program is not meeting the goals and metrics, that the response to that, instead of being to revoke the program, could be for the state to essentially intensify it and say, we're not cutting congestion to the degree we wanted, and we're not raising the revenue that we wanted. And so therefore we're going to raise the congestion toll higher to further cut down on congestion and to further raise revenue. I mean, it just seems to me that that's a sort of very logical outcome of the measurements and metric stuff that you're talking about. And frankly, a much more likely outcome from the kinds of measurements that you're talking about than what I think this resolution is geared towards attaining. And so, I understand the sort of opposition and concerns that are motivating this, but it just seems to me that we can get a little too cute in trying to sort of find roundabout ways to try and do this. And I don't want us to be kind of shooting ourselves in the foot here with the way that we're doing this.
So do you have an alternative? You're not proposing a friendly amendment that they double down on it, are you?
No, to me, I mean, I may just vote no on it for that reason. I mean, it just seems to me that if you're talking about, not liking the program or whatever, that's, yeah, I agree. But sort of trying to come up with a way to sort of, we're not going to be able to trick the state into undoing it or whatever. And so I think sort of, coming up with these sort of different angles on it and so on and so forth. I think in particular, this one, looking at the goals and metrics, measuring the progress against them, it just doesn't seem realistic to me that is going to lead to getting rid of the program. I think if anything, it would, again, as I said, I think it would just lead to higher tolls.
I understand your comment. I think there are a lot of people who feel that this is another form of a tax, and to have it continue without meeting its goals would not be a situation that's very tolerable for a lot of people. So I hear what you're saying, but I guess this is where we are unless someone wants to propose some kind of friendly amendment or just vote the way it is, but we're not there yet. So we'll get there. Chuck? Thank you, Russell.
Yeah, I'd like to propose an amendment. I'd like to, my amendment, substitute amendment, is going to be to have the first part of it the same about looking at the metrics and see if it's not meeting the metrics. My change is, instead of having the program end, which doesn't make any sense and no one's going to ever do that, we have them look at ways to make the program more effective so that it can meet the metrics. That's my substitute. If it's a second, then well, I guess Rohit and Barbara also seconded it. And I'll just say, following on what Russell said, it seems to me a more productive way for us to go about it, because we want a program that works. And if it's not meeting the metrics, then they'll try to figure out how they can make it work better.
Do you have a way specifically of defining what you mean by more effective? Because if you
to meet the metrics, no. What I'm saying is to make it more effective so that it meets the metrics. I mean, there's certain metrics you'd like it to meet, and if it meets those, if it's not meeting them, then you look at how to make it more effective to meet those metrics. Seems to me that makes more sense. If you want to see a program that's effective and works, that's what you do. If you want to see it.
I understand that. I guess what I'm asking you is whether in your definition effective would just mean raising the tolls, which is the situation that Russell has presented, because I couldn't, for me, I don't know what Craig thinks, but I couldn't accept that because of unintended consequences that people have raised in these meetings.
No, Alita, I'm not suggesting that. I mean, that's one, that I'm suggesting that they would look at ways to make it more effective. It's possible they might look, but there are other things they might try too.
If I could just add, so one of the challenges that I have with this resolution is the fact that we loosely talk about what the goals are, and it is true that there aren't any performance metrics that are listed in the law. And by putting in the law, that raises a potential litany of different challenges, because then you get into the question of, well, how do you determine, or how do you prioritize which goals you're trying to meet? And what happens if we make incremental progress in all of them, but maybe fall short on some of them? So would we accept that congestion may be reduced and we're hitting revenue targets, but maybe we don't meet the air quality goals? And is that enough reason to say that we need to make it more effective? I think that there's a question also of, is 3 to 5 years really enough of a time frame to be able to fully ascertain as to what the effectiveness is? So I think that is something that we may want to consider as well in terms of how we're just thinking about it. So there's always a danger in trying to mandate strict performance metrics in the law itself, because that doesn't necessarily result in the outcomes that we're looking for, because it is a fluid situation, and we don't know if, once congestion pricing is implemented, if it actually may be more effective than we think, and whether we were too ambitious with our, or our goals to the point where we may want to reduce them in the end. So I think what Chuck's suggesting makes a lot of sense in terms of the language being clear that we want to have some sort of performance measures in place. The reporting requirements are already there, and this way we have the ability to be able to change course if necessary in a way that will, at the time, be able to address whatever concerns or issues exist when we know what they are.
Yeah, well, people who support it, as people said with the last resolution, support it because of what they believe will be a favorable impact upon the environment and upon congestion and upon the financial assets and resources of the MTA. So it seems entirely fair to ask them to come up with their metrics and then prove or show whether it meets them or not. So this is, it seems to be just something that is saying create these and let people know whether they are supporting it for reasons that are being that exist or that they're being met, the goals are being met. So they know whether the additional monies that they're spending or their additional time going on alternative routes or whatever it is makes sense for them. But I don't want to spend any more time on this because other people have raised their hands. So we'll go with
Can I just said, sorry, I have just a quick question.
Sure, Russell.
Are we talking now about an amendment or a substitute resolution?
Substitute motion, Russell. It's a substitute motion to basically agree with the first part, to come up, there are some metrics that we look at, but to then look at what steps may be appropriate to try and meet the metrics if you're not. So that gives leeway to come up with some kinds of solutions. That's a substitute.
Is there a time frame? Are you presenting a time frame? The same 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, that's fine.
The same as what's in the resolution.
Say that's in the resolution. That's the only change I'm making is basically to say giving more leeway to look at solutions and not just say the program shall terminate. And I'm not specifying any kinds of solutions they should be looked at. And there are a lot of different things you could do.
Okay, well, since it's up to, I don't know, again, how Craig feels, but since it's up to the committee chairs to decide whether it's accepted, I would say
no,
yes.
It's a substitute. It's not.
No, it's a substitute. It's a substitute motion.
Substitute motion.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. Okay, then let's go to Barbara and Michelle and Valerie, and then we'll keep going. Barbara?
I guess I shouldn't go. I just have to express my frustration. I have to say, we heard from Craig, who's an expert planner. This is what he does professionally. Somebody like Chuck, who is an environmentalist, whose background is mind-boggling, and who've been transportation. And we hear from people who don't want it, that I call it the chicken little, that everything's going to fall apart. I hope that members of the community board understand that when the experts talk about the procedure and what effect it will have, and nobody knows if it's going to be perfect or not, that it's listened to. And that's all I'm going to say. I find it frustrating. And I always think that these committees are supposed to be, what can we do? And it always seems to be negative of how to hold it back so that we don't do it, whether in so many aspects of what we have. And so thank you for letting me express my frustration.
It goes with the territory. You're a part of the board. Michelle?
Yeah, that's exactly the point. You're a part of the board. If our position on this board was to just have the experts speak, we really wouldn't need the 50 of us. That's not our policy. We're all here to weigh in. We all have opinions. We all do our research on certain subjects. I know we all take it seriously. I know I certainly do. And I don't think it's fair to comment on whether or not other people should comment. Otherwise, we would have one expert in each committee and call it a night. So having said that, I for one, wanted an exit strategy for this. And I'll give you an example of why. A few years ago, I don't know, those of you who were on the board at the time, there was a proposal from the DOT that they used the pricing on meters, on parking meters, to determine how to improve congestion in certain areas. So when they came to 86th Street, they wanted to put fees on the parking meters to the point that would discourage their use during certain peak periods. And in fact, they did that. And what they found at that time, it was probably 6 years ago, maybe, when they put the maximum price on it at that time was $3.50. Now that doesn't look like a lot of money, but at that time it was a lot of money. When they put that on the meter, they found that it did not deter people using the meters during the peak time. So the determination was made that if they pushed it any further and went up, 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 what you were really doing is becoming punitive. In other words, you know, you weren't really helping the matter. So I just felt, and they withdrew the program, and that happened all over the city because people were willing to pay the higher price because they had the need. Now, whether or not that happens here, I don't know. They're talking $23, $25 to come in. I don't know how much more you can push it to. There is going to be a point of no return. I do think there should be an exit strategy. The way Chuck phrased the substitute motion first time, I wasn't sure he was considering that. But if he's if you're keeping the 3 to 5 years, as I believe you clarified that you would in your friendly amendment, Chuck, and you're just saying to have it reviewed, if you could add with a public comment period so that it's not just the state that's doing the reviewing, but that others have the ability to weigh in, then I could accept it because it would make perfectly good sense. So would that be, I mean, I don't see having a review process for the exit strategy and have no comment by anybody except, you know, except the state. So if that makes sense to you, then I could live with that.
Sure. Yes, Michelle, it does. I don't see any reason not to have the public comment when they're looking to review it. I think
Okay,
that's fine.
so if we keep the time frame and we're talking about review by the state, whatever, to come up with a solution with a public comment period, then I can accept that.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle. Valerie.
I'd like to call the question.
Well, before you do that, some people are vigorously waving their hands. So let's just go. I think that's.
They're vigorously waving to second it.
Oh, you're waving to
I think,
second it.
I think
Okay.
Randy wants a second. I don't know about Anthony.
Okay. Now I get it. Now I get it. Is there anyone who objects to calling the question? Could you lower hands?
They're vigorously seconding.
Okay, good. Okay, I know time's moving on. All right, so secretaries hit it.
Sorry, did we do, if anybody was opposed, did we do hands for who
And,
would
and
want to
let's
call the
just
question?
and let's just be clear about what we're voting on. Chuck has proposed a substitute
Substitute
resolution.
motion, right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, 3 to 5 years, public comment period, and the state will evaluate to determine whether it could become more effective if it doesn't meet the goals and metrics, correct?
Exactly. You stated very clearly, Alita. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Secretary, I don't know who that is.
It's me. So
Thank you.
is anyone voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause on the substitute resolution? Anthony?
No.
Thank you. Marco?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm going to vote no.
Thank you.
And before we go
Okay.
to the next committee, Sandrea, do you have a count on the first resolution?
We can get it when it's ready. We don't have to.
I have that one. That's 25 yes and 18 no for the first resolution.
And
One
one
abstention.
And one abstention.
Thank you.
Okay, because Andrea originally counted 17, but I don't want to hold anyone up. Back to you, Russell. Thank you, everyone, and thanks, Craig.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move next to the Landmarks Committee. David and Jan.
We heard one resolution on Monday night. 60 East 93rd Street, a beautiful John Russell Pope mansion, originally built for a member of the Vanderbilt family. The two-part application, very complicated because it involved a 74-711 special permit. I put in the resolution a description of what that exactly is for those of you who don't know. But the first part is an application for a certificate of appropriateness for modifications to especially the rear of the building, the windows at the penthouse level, and some minor modifications at the roof. This was unanimously approved by the committee. The second part, the special permit, involves having the Landmarks Commission issue a report that an ongoing maintenance program has been set up and a restrictive declaration is applied to the property in perpetuity. And this allows the applicant to have a waiver from the zoning, the applicable zoning, in this case, R8B. The waiver is required because a change of use is required because right now it's got a commercial C of O and they want to revert back to a single family home, which is a different C of O. And the reason why the waiver is required is that the rear yard is only 20 feet in depth as opposed to the required 30 feet. And the windows at the rear are not 30 feet, would not be 30 feet from the property line. So the committee unanimously voted for the Part A, the application for a certificate of appropriateness, and for Part B, the special permit. Any questions? And does anybody want to
There's some
call
hands.
the question? Oh,
Yeah,
I don't see the hands for some reason this time. I don't know what's wrong with my screen.
Marco, then Michelle,
Marco,
then
yeah.
Okay, Marco.
Call the question.
Is there a second?
Rebecca Dengor.
Peggy, I see Peggy has her hand up. Sherry. Okay. Any objection to calling the question? So I'm not sure myself who the secretary is.
So that would be me. Michelle has her hand up, both literally and figuratively. Michelle?
Yeah, since they were both unanimous, I was just going to suggest calling the question on parts A and B.
I thought that's what we were doing, Michelle.
Well, that wasn't the proposal.
I don't
so
think it was specified. So is there a second for that?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yes, it's seconded. Felice seconds and Rebecca.
Okay. So
Anyone opposed? Wait, sorry, hold on. Anyone opposed to that?
Chuck has his hands up. Are you opposed, Chuck?
No, he put his hand down.
Okay. So taking parts A and B together, is there anyone voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause? Chuck?
Not voting for cause, my firm is representing the applicant.
No, Valerie Campbell, she was there. She was great. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you.
Chuck, did you want to talk about the letter from 210 East 62nd Street? David Halpern, is he around?
I'm here. Essentially, it's a letter that is bringing us up to date. The applicant did not act during the period in which the certificate of appropriateness was valid. And that means that the applicant has to go back to get a new certificate of appropriateness, given that the committee, and I believe the board, was very much against what the applicant was doing and for which they had a certificate of appropriateness. This gives us another chance to review whatever the new application is going to be. And if it's the same as the old application, then we have an opportunity to recommend to the Landmarks Preservation Commission that they do not receive a new certificate of appropriateness for what they wanted to do. And some of that had to do with a major addition in the rear yard, which made no sense in that very small scale complex. And of course, they did a lot of other things that were simply not consistent with what had been approved. And other things that had been approved had to do with roof lines, and pretty much everything was larger than it should have been. So that's what the letter was about. It was bringing us up to date, and we expect that we will see that applicant again looking for a new certificate of appropriateness. Back to you, Jane.
Well, I think that's it. I just wanted you to mention that and discuss it. So thank you.
Thank you. Alita has her hand up.
Okay, my concern, and this has been ongoing for years, is that the building is so derelict that the applicant will then ask for permission to tear it down. I believe the Historic Districts Council has noted that this is a dire situation around the city where owners of landmarked properties or properties in historic districts just let the properties become dilapidated and then they go.
I'm going to just suggest, I think we should, if we want to get further into this, we got to do it in the committee.
That's fine. Well,
I would just take it up then.
It's a response to.
No. I understand. We got an update on the item, but yeah, I would just further discussion on this. I think we got to do in committee.
And we don't know that that building is that far along that it can't be maintained, that it can't be reconstructed.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll put it on the agenda. Thank you, Russell.
Sure. Thank you, guys. All right. So with that, that brings us to the end of the committee reports. I am not aware of any old or new business. So if someone would like to move to adjourn, we can do that. Rebecca.
Move to adjourn.
See some seconds. All right. Very good. Thanks, everybody. Great meeting.